Good morning, everybody. This is Joe Brown from The Real Game Unplugged. Today, my guest today is Matt Driver. Me and him, we have an incredible history together, competitors, best friends, learning from each other. So we all have our paragraphs, but, Matt was someone that I admired a lot, and we just have learned from each other over the years. He's, he is a CEO of soccer universities. He was a former MLS coach, former USL owner, former league developer. He's a proven person that whatever he touches, he can rebuild. He's done so many things, but he's a proven builder in the game. So welcome, Matt. And you're just one of the people that I like to talk to because you have a great track record and people can learn from you. So good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me on again, Joe. Great introduction. I hope I can live up to it.
Oh, stop it. Oh, no, there's not enough. Let's go back into the past. Guilty.
I actually go back to watching you coach, and I believe it was the Delaware Wizards, and I believe it was the team from Coral Springs. It was in the USL at the time.
Coco Expo.
Yeah, Ricky. Was it Ricky Hill?
Yeah.
Ricky Hill was the opposition, and it was at Glasgow High School.
Yeah.
Well, that's gone back a bit, right?
Oh my God.
So I watched, and I went, oh, this is good. I would like to get a piece of that. Then the following year, I watched the Wizards play again, and I was from outside the state. I was brought into the state by Matt Simoniski and Bob Bussiere.
Yeah.
So the following year, you moved to Newark High School because it was a better stadium.
Yeah.
And you couldn't get a seat in the place. I mean, but walking into that school, everybody knew everybody. There was thousands. I think you had maybe 3,000-4,000 people at the game. I mean, the place was packed, and that was, I want to do this. At that time I was a state director for Delaware. So I think the word got out to you that I'd moved into the area, and you found where I was living. I was living in a townhouse, just moved down from Jersey to be the state director of coaching for the state. And I got a knock on the door probably 8 o'clock in the morning. And Joe Brown standing there. Hey, I'm Joe Brown. How are you? I'm here for a coffee. And you walked right into the house without me saying, what are you doing? You just walked in.
Who are you? Who are you?
I'm like, normally when that happens, there's usually, a problem. And I sat down and, it was like, okay, I know who you are. And, obviously you know who I am. What can I do for you? And you were like, look, I run all these camps all over Delaware, some up in PA, 1 or 2 down in Maryland. I know that you're going to start your camp business. We can be competitors off the field, but let's not cannibalize each other. So here are my dates. I don't know if you remember this. Here's the dates. I have about 12, 14 locations. Let's not operate a camp 2 weeks either side of those dates so we don't screw each other. And then he goes, and whatever I tell you, don't trust me, because if I can make money, I'm going to make money.
We had to back then.
Huh?
We had to back then. We had to.
And I was like, is this guy for real? He just said all of this, good guy, and then he comes across saying, don't trust me. So should I trust him or should I not?
Yeah.
And so anyway, we scheduled our things, and then I sat down with you and I said, I want to open up a team. I'm going to look at Jersey. And you said to me, okay, here's what you need to do. So you were actually one of the, along with the likes of Jimmy Kilmeade, who was at the Long Island Rough Riders. In fact, back then, Alfonso Mondial.
Alfonso Mandela.
Yeah. I'd played against him for years. I'd known him. And he was a coach of Long Island, but Jimmy was the first GM of the Rough Riders. Yeah. And Alfonso was trying to get me to play. And I'm like, mate, I'm too old to play. I was in my 30s. He goes, no, you can still get another season in you. And I was like, it's not happening. This isn't done. And then you sat down with me and said, this is how I run my business. This is what I do. And at that time, I had a lady partner.
I had 3 or 4 really good administrative partners.
Yeah.
I was very blessed that I surrounded myself with good people. And that's one of the things Mr. McPherson, he's my legend mentor is Neil McPherson, right? And Neil's story, his dad was chairman for Nottingham Forest during the Cluffy days, right? And everything that I do, I really gauge off of what he does. And, one of the things, when we were in the early days, he was a guy that I stuck to at league meetings and stuff. And I just absorbed. I just listened because a lot of people don't listen, right? And, one of the things he says, you'll be successful, but you got to surround yourself with good people and you have to share your pie.
Right.
And I've always lived by that.
What you did was you opened up the door. You said, here, take what you need. Here's the information. I'm here. On the field, we're going to kick the crap at each other. Off the field, let's see how we can collaborate. And I've always taken that and used that in everything I've done. Obviously we came to close to blows on the field with you or your coaching staff. Yeah. And then afterwards, we're sat in having a laugh about it. You know, but it's because of the competitive nature of, if you're going to be a professional and you're not like that and you don't have an edge, you're going to fail. But
you better have an edge.
Yeah, but you've got to be humble and understand that people that have gone before you, there's best lessons to be learned off of those guys. And a lot of people are closed-minded. A lot of people don't want to share that information because they think it's going to impact them. And to be honest, it doesn't. You're in a different area. You're in a different community. Your situation might not fit, but if I modify it, then it potentially fits.
In the business world, I needed to have someone in South Jersey. All right. Where people don't understand, selfishly, it's going to save me money.
Absolutely.
Because if you have a successful program, my travel just got sliced a huge amount for home and away.
Yeah.
My closest game at that point was North New Jersey, and then we had to go into Connecticut. Right. So to me, we were still doing those clubs because we eventually outgrow it. Right. We'd have an incredible derby right now. Right. Because that was because Philly didn't have a team and they had a team, but then it faded. It was
it was a Philadelphia
anytime I could find something that they made it.
Philadelphia Freedom. Right.
Yes.
Yeah. And then you had the Reading Rage.
Yeah. But I think Reading's still here. I think they survived.
No matter survived.
Yes. Yeah. And so, as you look at the, our kids, you can go to any soccer camp or any event with youth soccer today, which is unfortunate. They don't know the history of our game in this country.
Well, that is surprising because, I know more about the American game than I do about the British and the English and the Scottish game. People talk to me all the time as if just because I have an accent. Growing up in, obviously I'm from Glasgow, but growing up in England at 12, 13, 14 years old, I seen a documentary at that time called A Kick in the Grass. And it was about the Tampa Bay Rowdies and Rodney Marsh and George Best and all those guys. And I was telling guys back in the, late 70s, when I say late 70s, 76, when I was at school, I'm going to play football in America. And they were like, you're on crack. Well, crack doesn't exist at that time, but you're on drugs, right?
What are you smoking?
Yeah, exactly. So I was like, nah, I'm going to go. And they were like, Matt, you can't even get in a school team. What makes you think you're going to go and play professional overseas? And it was that drive between 15 and 17 that drove me towards getting my first pro contract because I lost weight, I shot up on size, and everybody, although I don't even know if my mum and dad believed in me, because I come from a family of footballers who played at professional level. My Uncle Jim, for sure, played at Falkirk. He also played in Ireland, Derry City. So I had that to live up to, but they were never pushy, had to do it on my own, and they supported me from a distance, whatever that support was, whether it was monetary or you don't need a job, just train every day, and they gave me the flexibility to be able to do that.
And you only need the ball.
Well, that was it. You know, my old man would come home from night shift and kick me out of bed and go, "Here's a ball, go down the park and don't come back until 3 o'clock because that's when he got out of bed again." And I'm like, you know, I didn't have a job. I'd left school. I was 16. Yep. So, you know, and it was probably then where I really developed on my own, you know, just doing things to keep myself occupied, regardless of the weather. You know, it was...
That was the best players, the best intelligent players as well. And a lot of the people that we've talked to on the podcast, you know, my best players, they didn't just go to clinical training sessions with their club team. They played on their own. Well, they found older siblings or their friends, a ball and a wall. You know, many times I'm kicking against a fence. But you have to have your own imagination, right?
Well, I'll give you an example of that. So one of my first jobs was working in a factory, right? And I was in a warehouse, and in the warehouse it had this corrugated iron wall, you know, where it goes like this.
Oh, right?
Yeah. And I would dribble the ball to work in the morning. So I had to be in there at 7:30, clock in at 7:30. So I'd leave the house at 7 o'clock, and it was about a mile away. So I would run to work with the ball, be dribbling, juggling, whatever. And then I'd walk in, and the men would give me a, you know, "What sort of guy are you? You're here to work, you're not here to play football." Then at lunchtime, all I would do is have a quick sandwich, and then I would just bang the ball against the corrugated iron wall, and it was coming off at different angles, and guys were going, "You're an idiot. What are you doing? It doesn't even come back to you. What are you doing?" But what it was doing was it was showing, I was teaching myself how to adjust my feet work, you know, get on the balls with my feet so I would react, you know, because you don't know how it's going to hit. So, you know, you drive it against the wall and it comes back to your right, and it might be 5 yards, it might be 10 inches. You just don't know, but you have to adjust. And as a striker, you have to be able to do that. You have to play with your back against play all the time, and you have to make sure that you're moving into space and adjust. And, you know, I would juggle the ball back, and I got absolutely pelters. I got abused by these guys. And then I went on trial at Rochdale Football Club, and when I got signed, everybody was like, "Oh, we always believed you were going to make it."
Yeah, but that little bit of training in our environment, because, you know, the pay-to-play system, and I don't mind people making money because we deserve to give our knowledge and teach kids technique and life skills and all that stuff. You know, the issue that I have in this big total pay-to-play system is what's the return on their investment, because kids are spending 120 to 150 grand by the time they're a sophomore in high school.
Yeah.
And what is that investment? But what you did, and most of the people, even the players that I had, what they did is you created, you can't teach that in training sessions. You have to have time to yourself to create. And a lot of times when I talk to parents and kids as well, how much are these kids in America watching the game? Just watching the game.
It's growing up in the culture, and it's not, you know, when you're watching the game on TV, and it's better now, you're seeing it through the eyes of the guy that's watching the TV. So you're not really seeing the game as it is being played. You're seeing their version of the game, of what's being played, because the camera's following the play. You know, the activation point, believe it or not, is where do you think the camera is focused in a game more than any other point?
It's around the ball.
It's around it's the third. People don't realize the best type of advertisement you could do would be on the sock.
Yep.
Right? La Liga tried it a few years ago, where they developed a whole system. A friend of mine was involved, Russell Poynton, and basically they had the advertisement on the sock, and it was called the activation model, because the ball's normally on the ground, so you're looking at people's feet a lot of the time, right? But to go back to the other thing, the ball is, the camera's following the ball, it's following where the ball is, so you're not really seeing the big picture. And that's why, as a scout and as a coach and a GM, you don't go and sit beside the field. You sit up in the nosebleed section because you want to be able to see the big picture. You want to see the movement off the ball. You want to see who's creative. And you can see patterns of play clearly. I remember some friends of ours came over from the UK and we got tickets for the, I believe it was a Chelsea again. It was at the Eagles. It was Chelsea. I turned around and I went, they've got a pattern of play here. You could see, I says, this is going to happen. They've tried the same pattern 3 or 4 times down the right side, and it was out to the full back into the centre back, outside half back, sets it for the full back, into the striker, back to midfield, and then they were going to the edge of the 18-yard box. Now, it had broken down 3 out of 4 times they'd done it. On the 5th time they scored.
Right.
And the guy who sat beside me, he's a Rangers fan. He's a little bit older than me. He's my mate, Billy and Catherine, and she's a Man City. In fact, her father played at Man City. But Billy's a Rangers fan, and he goes, holy shit, how did you know that was going to happen? And I said, because I'm watching
the whole picture.
The whole picture. I'm not following the players. And most people that go to games, they don't follow. They're not looking at that. They're looking at the action around the ball. They're not looking for the running off the ball, so they're not. I mean, I walked into a meeting at the Metro Stars we had with them and just randomly turned around and said, what's the best pass in the game? And everybody's going around the table asking. And I turned around and I says, the next pass. And he went, oh, you've heard it before. I said, no, I've just played a long time. Yeah. The next pass is the most important pass because it's going to determine what you're going to do. And people were saying, well, penetrating pass, this type of pass.
Right, yeah. It's the next.
And I'm like, none of those guys he was asking had played. So they don't know. Right. So, but when you sit back, not as a fan, but as not even an educator, but somebody who reads the game for whatever reason you're reading a game, you look at the big picture and you're looking at various movements off the ball, and it was obvious what was going to happen. I mean, it was they were going to do it until the other team figured out you can't come down this, and they hadn't figured that out yet. Because when you see Bielsa kneel down at a game and he's looking at people, when somebody kneels down at a game as a coach or sits on a bleacher during a game, sits on a cooler during the game, what are they seeing? They're seeing feet. They're not seeing the game.
Right.
So that's not for the players' benefit. That's for the fans' benefit.
Yeah.
Look at me. I'm the thinker. Let me go down here. I'm a thinker. No, right. You want to be as high as possible so you can see what's going on.
Yeah. Or have eyes in the sky.
Well, we played against Boston Bolts one year, South Jersey Barons. And the coach at that time was Stevie Nicol. He's a mate of mine. Obviously, I went to coach with Stevie up in MLS. Guess where we sat during that game? We sat beside each other's on the top of the bleachers, Cherokee High School. Yeah. And people were like, what are you guys doing? Hey, our coaching staff's down there. Yeah. Anything we need to do, we'll just have a word. But we just sat up there and watched the game, and then we go down, make our comments, and then run back up again.
Yep. And I think that's the beauty when watching the whole game. And when I tell, young players, they're like in purgatory. I'm going to play pro. I'm getting out of college. I'd rather see them go overseas and play for a 4th division club and try to raise up the cream of the crop. But I'm like, if you watch a game in your specific position and watch the movement, the body shape, how does that player do off the ball? What is that player like before the game? What's he like in halftime? What's that player like post-game? It's not just a game on the park, but you can learn a lot about a player or a team when they're not playing and they're in their group and their coach as well.
Right. Yeah, and when I do some video analysis, I can look at a video in 2 minutes, tell you if this is a player I want or not. It can look technically great. You can look at the opposition and say he's doing well because he's playing against weak opposition. You can see all of that. The big thing you can't see is the attitude. You can see the demeanor. Is he somebody who's going to work off the ball? If he's somebody like, and I'll say it, Taylor Twellman. I could kill him every day in practice because every time he screwed up, it was one of these and it was someone else's fault. Well, what does that do for team morale?
Right.
You know, he's doing this as if to say, well, I don't make any mistakes. And that used to piss me off, you know, because I don't like a player to show, one, that he's made a mistake, because if you do, it shows weakness. And if you show weakness, it's going to bring pressure. So if you screw up, you might be the only guy on the field that knows you've screwed up because you've tried to do. You know how many goals I've scored that I didn't mean to score because it was crosses?
Yeah, exactly.
And I've gone,
it's because you're in the right space, right time.
Yeah, I've just took the glory. Yeah, of course I meant it and walked on. You know, but if you tell people you've screwed up or acknowledge that you've screwed up, then you've acknowledged that you've made a mistake. You're bringing attention on yourself, which is going to bring additional pressure, and you're going to put yourself in a harder situation. So that doesn't compute with me. Good players don't acknowledge it; they just get on with it.
The mistakes they made. There was a time, and I don't know if it's happening today, but you know, someone would make a bad pass or a doink or not get what they were supposed to be doing in their thoughts, and they go, my bad. Yeah. I'm like, don't tell them you're bad.
Yeah,
it's just everybody. The game is a million mistakes, or it'd be 10-10.
Exactly. The thing that pisses me off, and it's crept into the game over the last 20 years. You know, you watch these guys; they miss an opportunity or they hit a shot, and it goes 5 feet over the bar, and they're down on their knees and go, man, what are you doing? You're playing to the camera and you're playing to the crowd. You know, get on with it. Because while you're down there, what happens if that ball comes into play immediately? You know, we're not getting into the crowd to pick up the ball from the crowd or jumping over the fence. You know, there's a ball boy. It's going to set the ball and they're playing at the back. So while you're down on your knees,
get your ass up, and get in your shape, and then figure out what your next assignment is with the flow of the game.
Yeah,
right?
There's too much. There's too much play acting. You know.
Yeah.
I mean, we used to say, obviously, playing in England, some of the leagues. You know, I mean, if you go back and look at the 70s and the 80s, and you know, I grew up playing at that time, and in the 90s, it was a far more physical game, and you could get away with a lot of things, especially if you're a defender. And especially if you're a striker, because you would basically piss on your territory. You know, I mean, the first challenge, the ball doesn't have to even be there. It's just this is what the day is.
That's your statement. Yeah, that's when you're making your early statement that you're paying rent for this area here.
Let me tell you, Dave Whitcraft. You remember Dave?
Oh yeah, he was one of my first signed players.
Yeah, so Dave was my assistant, right? For a couple of years.
Great guy. Great man.
An English team happened to be on tour and they said, would you play? It was a Barons. Would you mind playing? So we put all the lads in to play against them. We had a good crowd. It was at Cherokee High School. And they had a big centre back, typical English centre back, crunching everybody. And we had a young 19 kid, Italian Ferrese, his name was Daniel Ferrese. His dad owned a bunch of Italian restaurants, right? Big kid, 6'3", 6'4", and he absolutely got destroyed because the guy just bullied him. The English guy bullied him. So at halftime, I said to Dave, right, we're going in. And he looked at me and he went, are you joking? I says, no, go in. We're going to play 15 minutes.
I can see Dave too.
And he goes, okay. I says, what I want you to do is hang the first ball up when it comes in, hang it up. Just put it up down the middle. I'm going to go up front. And he goes, okay, why are you doing this? This is because somebody needs to learn a lesson.
Right.
So we go on there. This guy comes on and he's in my ear, oh, you're Scottish, you're old. And I was still playing a little bit. I was still in my early 30s, so I could move a bit, right? You know, I wasn't as fit as some of them. And basically what I did was I'm here in front, he's here behind. The first ball gets pumped in the air and I just moved there and let him jump. And then I came across him and I gave him that wham, just turned his nose the other side of his face, right? And I walked away. I never said anything. He was down. The referee came over. He goes off for treatment, comes back on. Now I know we're in a war. And he came out and he goes, well, I knew what the term old man meant, but it never happened to me. Because he knew he just got old man. So I played another 10 minutes and I said, right, I'm out. And he left. The other kid went in. You know, my wife went berserk with me. She goes, what are you doing? You shouldn't be putting yourself in that situation. I says, look, you know, guys who play that way expect to be played against that way. And he needed to know that he was being, you know, he was just being a bully. It's not that I'm a tough guy. It was, this is what I did.
He's going to make a statement. And if your attacking players aren't strong enough to see that, right, you're going to have to give that resistance back. Yeah. You're also going to have to be just as much of an asshole sometimes. You're going to have to get you're going to have to get into it, right?
Listen, you know, I mean, I've done that and came out on top, and then I've gone in against Dauda Kante at the Revs training. I've posted up against him, and I've turned him, and I've had a try break, a compound fracture, and he's standing over me saying, "Gaffer, I'm sorry," and I'm going, "F off, I'm fine." And there's a bone sticking out my shin, and I'm like, "Don't you apologise to me?" You know, and they're like, "Are you crazy?" I'm like, if I think I'm good enough to be on here and that happens, that's on me. That's not on you.
Absolutely.
You know?
So let's talk about, you had your time in MLS, you enjoyed it, right? It was awesome.
Stevie Nicol was, you know, all the guys I've worked, played for, and been with as a player, as a coach, Stevie Nicol by far was the best man manager that I've ever seen. And he had a very simple take on it. Steve, people don't realise this about Stevie Nicol, but Stevie Nicol's a well-read guy. When we would travel, you know, while I'm buying videos and putting the videos in so I can, because I hate to fly and watch videos while I'm flying, Stevie would go into the bookstore and buy a book. And it could be something as deranged as, here's the first 10 presidents of the US, and do that, right?
And that's the picture of when he did his training camp with the Revs down with me in North Carolina with Mariner, right? Which, Paul, he was, I mean, just sitting back watching their sessions was off the hook.
Well, let me tell you, we're watching my sessions. Are you talking about when Paul was there? So I'm sat in a car. I wrote a book, and I'm sat in a car, and I got a call from the publisher at Reed Swain. He says, Jose Mourinho just bought your book. It was on block. It was called Coaching Dynamics, but he was really interested in the block defending part.
Right. And
so I wrote the book and done all of that. And I was like, who the hell's Jose Mourinho? And they're laughing. And he says he just won the European Cup, I think, was it Porto?
What was his breakthrough at Porto?
Yeah. So he says he's a monster. He says what he does, he says he buys, you know, half a dozen books a year. He says, and he'll pick them out. He says, and he happened to pick yours out and said he really liked it because of the management side. Well, the management side was really a collaboration between Stevie and I. But what I figured out was a throwaway comment that Stevie made. When he was on the field, Stevie would say, edge it to the back four. And I'm saying, no, step up. And he goes, look, if you're playing against Ian Rush and you step up, that's 5 yards. He's just bend his run. He's in behind. He's gone. If you edge it, you're tight to somebody like Ian Rush. Yeah. And as he tries to spin off, you're jockeying him so he can't get into his stride, and you blocked his run and took him out of stride. Okay, that got my attention. But the one that really got my attention was when he said, I'm trying to think of Rusty's last name, Pierce. He was left back for the national team. Yeah. And Rusty was an absolute maniac. Yeah. You know, physical monster. Look, not a big guy, but he would put his foot in all the time. He was really erratic with his personality. You never knew if you were going to get good Rusty or bad Rusty. But when you brought him into the office, he went from being like a monster to, hi, I'm a born again.
The guys, Rusty's the guy you take to a beer fight with you, though.
Yeah. But Rusty would come into the office and go, "Hi, coach. How did training go today? How do you think it did?" And on the field, he's, "I'm gonna kill you." You know, I mean, it was just complete opposite.
Yeah.
And Stevie had him under control like you won't believe. And he says, "Look," he says, "I'm like, it's amazing." I says, "How you deal with these guys." He goes, "Matt," he says, "I just tell them the truth." And I said, "What do you mean?" He says, "Well, I'm not intelligent enough to lie." And I was like, wow. I mean, think about that. If you're, how many coaches lie to players on a daily basis? Oh, you had a decent day today. He's had a shocker. Right.
My story with Steve was, in Greensboro, I took them all out to a nice dinner. Neil made sure, take them out to dinner. So we went out, had a nice meal, had him, we're in the car, and he says, "Joe, I need you to drive. I want you to drive around the hotel for a couple times." Right. And it was probably 10 or 11 o'clock. And I said, "All right." So we're sitting there, and then we're just parked in the area of a parking lot where no one can really see us. Right. And we just sit back there and we're talking. I had no idea what he's doing, because the guy sees things, right?
Yeah.
And here's a player getting dropped off by a cabbie going into the hotel. And he says, "Okay," because that's what I wanted to see. He goes, "Get his ticket. He's going home tomorrow." Right?
Yeah.
Right. I had no idea what he's doing, but that player cut himself because he thought he was smarter than everybody else to go out on the town during preseason training camp, right? Yeah. And I just sat there and I went, "Holy shit!" This kid has no idea.
Nah, they're dumb. But one of the things was, at the beginning when we went in there, I was the first 2 or 3 weeks. We had to bed in a system, and I'd done that, but I would throw in a different training session, different way of figuring out the solution, right? Rather than keeping it consistent. And he said to me, "I don't like that." And I said, "Why?" And he said, "I just don't like the fact that every time we start training and you bring in something new that's not, something that the players have done before, you're challenging them. And players don't like to be challenged," he says, "mentally. So, you've got to think of them as mushrooms. Keep them in the dark and only give them a little bit of light when they need it."
Okay.
And I went, "Okay." I said, "Okay." So I said, "How do you want me to do this?" I says, "You want me to do micro or macro?" And he went, "What the hell does that mean?" And I went, "Well, do you want me to put together a daily session over the course of the week? Do you want that to be a weekly session over the month? Do you want me to do a season-long plan?" And he goes, "Oh, you're anal." And I said, "No." I said, "Because I get what you're saying." I says, "What I'll do," I says, "I'll put together a list, a block of sessions that will be, these are the warm-ups. We don't vary from these warm-ups. There's 6 warm-ups that we can do. There's 6 possessions drills that we can do. There's 6, playing against, we did everything in 6s, right? Because at the most we would have at least 6 sessions in a week. That we knew that we had to do that." I said, and then that way they're familiar with it. And then when we do the patterns, and he was like, "What are you talking about?" I mean, very few people did patterns play back then. Right. But when we were doing the patterns, there were non-negotiables. It was just, this is how it's going to be. And when we did our block defending, I mean, shit, I was the one that came up with block defending 20 years ago, and now you're hearing them on TV talking about, well, when they get a block and a block, and I go, yeah, thank you.
Tell me about 2 things. One, what are you doing? You said you're going overseas tomorrow. Tell me about what your thing that you're doing there. And then I want you to tell me about the Senior World Cup team, men's team, that you have helped do trials with, and tell me a little about both of those.
The over 40 national senior team actually are in camp today, and I'm supposed to be there. So basically, for the last year, David Jones, English guy, he's a pretty intelligent guy. He worked for me years ago as a coach, tried out for me, played a little bit for the Barons. But he's an ex-forces guy. He was in the forces in the UK, and then he came over here and tried his hand on a few things. He went in 2 weeks before the cut-off age, and he became a medic and served in the US He was in Kandahar and all those places as a medic, so he's seen a lot of stuff. And but he came back, and he came back a changed guy, organized, structured, all of that. And he basically said to me about a year ago, he says, I want to start this over 40. He'd been a national team coach for American Samoa and did pretty well. And he would give me a call every once in a while and say, look, can you give me some advice or guidance on this, that, and the other? And I said, yeah, of course. But then he said, I'm starting an over 40 national team program. He said, I've gone to US Soccer and they don't want to endorse it. And I said, so? And he goes, well, I'm just going to do it on my own. And I said, you should do. I said, see how it is. I says, if you do it well, people will come knocking on the door. Well,
create value, son.
Yeah.
Create value.
So he's done that. I mean, he's getting over 300,000 hits a week or a month on his Facebook page. I mean, he's put together a series of tournaments. I guess he played in the World Cup last year in Taiwan. They got invited back. They didn't do too well the first year. I think it was the Walking Wounded that went there. They didn't know what to expect. And they're playing against proper national team programs that are funding this. So they're getting the best players. Well, Dave is self-funding this. Him and his friend put some money in, and he makes the players put money in to pay for it. And they're not making money. And any money he does get from sponsors, he puts it into the program so he can create these opportunities. I said I'd come on as an advisor. I did that. I brought in some of my other colleagues that are helping him. And he's put together a tremendous program. So, they're going to be in camp for the next 4 days. And then they fly out to Taiwan and they'll play in the World Cup again. And they've got a good contingency from Philly and Jersey. And then a good contingency from St. Louis.
Okay.
There's a lot of vets that are in it. But he's got a decent squad this year. That some of them I know played in the USL because they played for me.
And it's their second. They know what they're getting into this round.
Well, yeah. And Dave's done, because of his background, he's got doctors, physios. When he ran that program last year, he took all of that with him, and all the teams were going to him for the post-match, rehydration and everything else, because he was taking fluids, and he took a whole bunch of stuff with him. So he got a really good, reputation. And then he's been consistently running these mini camps over the course of the year, attending tournaments, getting people involved. And it's, what? I went into camp. I hadn't coached for about 18 months because I'd hung it up. And Dave says, will you come up and help me run the camp? And I said, sure. But I'm not coming up to sit on a chair and do that. If I'm coming, I'm doing sessions.
Right.
And
I'm getting in it.
Yeah.
Yep.
And he goes, no, I want you to. So dealing with these guys, 40 to 50 years old, it was a blast because I didn't have to be politically correct. And I took a different demeanor when I walked onto the field. I mean, you know how I am as a coach. I'm disciplined, organized, structured, business. With these guys, I would turn around and go, what was that? And they go, what? That was shit.
Yeah.
Do you coach for a living? I've got a couple of teams. Would you let your guy get away with that? No. Well, what makes you think I'm going to let you get away with that?
Right.
And honestly, this will crack you up. I had them doing donkeys and stars and stuff that we do with 6-year-old kids, right? And they were looking at me as if I was on crack, and they're doing it, And you know what? Every one of them had a blast.
Yeah.
This is the first time we've never been coached at that level before. So, but the way you broke us down, and you broke down all the egos, because when you screwed up, I wasn't going 15 push-ups, because Dave was like 25 push-ups, 15 push-ups, and he's been a typical English hard-nosed coach.
Those days are gone.
I'm going 5 donkeys. What's the donkeys? Okay, I want 10 Minnie Mouses. Get the cones, put them on your ear, and they're running around. And these guys are guys that fought in Iraq,
right?
That have been I went up to the guy. He took his shirt off, and he was built like a brick shit house. And he was 5'9". And I turned around and I said to him, I said, "Hi, what's your name?" He goes, "I think it was Matt." And he goes, "Matt." I says, "What do you do for a living?" "I'm a retired." I said, "What did you do for a living?" He says, I flew F-25s or F-15s.
He's a fighter pilot.
And he says, "I compressed some of my vertebrae because of the speed and all the other stuff." He says, "So, I'm done now." And I went, "I want to be you when I grow up." I mean, he took everything on board. His kid's a player, He says, "I played when I was younger." He says, "This is great." And he says, "I get to try out with guys that are really, really good."
Tell me in about 2 minutes what you're doing flying over to Italy. Just a real quick on that one.
Well, it's premature. We basically have just signed an LOI. We're meeting with interested parties who want to develop professional soccer and an academy system in the
There you go. Okay.
And the Europeans.
Okay, very good.
Think about this. Why aren't they doing it in Europe?
Okay. Well, listen.
There is.
Yeah.
US soccer market is going through the ceiling. The talent is there.
Yeah.
We are a more sophisticated Africa, where people would rape and pillage the African nations to bring the best young talent in.
Yep.
We're more sophisticated. We've got all of those abilities, other than our kids are educated. We don't have any issues with diet and nutrition. They're at the best facilities, so they're more professionalized. They just don't have that daily culture.
They don't have the daily culture. They don't have the grit.
Yeah, that culture's created by the likes of you and I. If you don't have somebody who holds people to be accountable in every given situation, and they don't have the drive, then that's it.
They don't want to be accountable. Trophies that mean nothing.
They're administrators. You've got to give a damn when you walk on the field. When you walk off the field and you don't give a damn, you're looking at a kid as a dollar sign. And that's where the pay-to-play model breaks down, because parents aren't sophisticated enough to realize that when that coach walks off the field, he should be mentally exhausted.
Yeah. But feel like you accomplished something.
Yeah.
Feel like you got something out of the day.
Yeah, I don't need to tell you everything I know, because it's not going to be beneficial to you. I need to give you one bit of information in each session. It makes you better.
One takeaway. Yeah, just a takeaway. That's it. Let's talk about Nigeria. Yes.
Yeah. So I'm supposed to fly out on June 1st to the 6th for the Nigerian U20 tournament. It's been put together and sponsored by the Italian government and the Italian embassy, and it's called the Italian Embassy Cup. They're going to have 8 teams at U20 from all over Nigeria competing for multi-million-dollar prize. They're bringing in half a dozen people like myself from all over the country to help them identify who the best talent is, and then help them create a pathway to move that talent. The big problem with a lot of the African countries isn't the ability to develop players. It's the ability to legally monetize those players. That's how I say it, right? Yes. And create the best system for them to move on to, which then will help them in their bigger picture of, we want to win the World Cup.
Everybody, when a player there gets identified and they know that he's going to cash in and make a good contract, people come out of the woodwork.
Sure.
Well, I need a piece of that action. I started him at 6 years old. Then another guy says, it's an ongoing thing. People will appear out of nowhere.
Yeah, well, now you can see all of that because it's all being tracked now because of training, compensation, and solidarity. I'll give you an example, right? I've got a kid. His name's Austin Yowell, a top Division 1 player here in the US. He's been playing for the last year at Werder Bremen, and he's been shifting in and out of the reserve team and the third team. He's 23 years old, right? And he's playing on the U23s. Now, I just got him into Portugal. So he's in Portugal now. He just left Portugal yesterday. He was there for a week of training before he moved on to Ireland. So he's going to go to Ireland now because he just finished playing the season there. He walked away with his release. So he's got Portugal. And he's a 6'3" left-footed centre-back. I mean, the boy's a monster. He's not a player that's going to go in and develop. He's a player who's going to go in and get you results now.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? You're not signing this kid where he's going to be 2 years from now. You're signing this kid because you need to win games and you need a centre-back who can do a specific job. He's that guy, right? So I'm sending him. He arrives tomorrow in Ireland with Galway, which is in the championship. And then he leaves there after a week and he's going to Dundalk, which is on the opposite side of the coast, which is in the Premier League. Now, that's an American player, right? Who, he's done his best efforts to educate himself because he didn't get into the draft while other guys did that he played against and everything else. And he's probably better than them, but because of the politics and things, how they work, he found an alternative route, which was, Dad, give me some money. Mom, give me some money. And he jumped on a plane and he found himself in Germany and he went from club to club. And eventually, believe it or not, Werder Bremen picked him up.
Listen, people have to get out of the mainstream on how to get to college and pro. There's so many tentacles.
Yeah,
so many.
So the old man reaches out to me and I says, look, I'm not an agent. I said, but if I'll talk to the kid. So I've mentored the kid for the last year. He's done really well in Portugal. I don't think it's a style of play for him. I spoke to the coach that just left and he says, Matt, we like him. Is this our possibility? And I says, it depends on his next 2 weeks. I says, and then it'll depend on what offers he gets when he goes back to the US. Because he's ready to walk into the championship now. But it just gives you an example of, it's never too late to give up on your dream. No.
So I'm going to close it here. USFT Sports, I had to bring that back after COVID, right? Getting good traction. We always have a FIFA agency involved with us as well, right? So, everybody that's out there helping parents, kids, players, we have all the tools to get you where you're at. And also, I have people like Coach Driver here that I can call up and connect you to places that I don't even know about, right? That's your network is your net worth. You always rely on your resources, right? So it's always important for people to remember that, because in the United States, kids won't take that chance to go overseas. They'll get done, and you only have 36 months. You really need to figure out what you want to do. Take the best of it, but get people that can help you get there, that have been there. We felt the pain. I mean, soccer's been good to us. We've gone through the pains and the rewards and the success stories and the failure. Learn from people like that, because nobody knows everything in this, right? Mm-hmm. And it's always evolving and changing. But I thank you. I thank you for spending time with me.
Absolutely. I do this all day long.
We're going to get back together, because you're going to be somebody that I want to talk to about what we think about what happened in the World Cup.
Hopefully I'll be able to make an announcement on what we're doing. All
right, brother. That's all. And anytime. So this is USFT Sports. This is a Real Game Unplugged. USFTsports.org. Go to our website. Go to the bottom of the website and find our Facebook and our Instagram. Having a coach. Thanks, Matt. Brother, have a safe trip.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
I'll see you, bro. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.